Hello, hello everybody. We're going to talk today about the Didache. It is a document that is considered by many Christians to be a first century document, but it is actually probably most likely not. It's going to be a quick video. Thank you for tuning in again. Yes, the Didache. I'm going to read from my book here quickly. The Didache, meaning teaching in Greek, full title: the Lord's teachings through the 12 apostles to the nations, called spurious by Eusebius and not mentioned any earlier than this church father. So that's about the 320s, the early 300s, contains the word Christians, whereas none of Paul's letters mention Christians, nor do any other extant documents dating to the first century. Again, this is true. I just kind of reiterate a lot through this work. It is a manual of general Christian instruction containing various details on baptism and the Eucharist, abortion, and other prescriptions for community leaders, as well as a full copy of the Lord's Prayer. Eusebius, writing about 324 CE, affords us the first attestation of the Didache in the original name. So this is a late document. I know this is kind of the way the history works, but you'll get the first attestations or mentions of a certain document that might well have come earlier, and it certainly looks as though it's a second century document. But again, it's outside of the view of anyone who could have possibly been first century, and this is what Eusebius says. Among the rejected writings must be reckoned also the Acts of Paul and the so-called shepherd, that would be the shepherd of Hamas. We're going to cover that next video most likely, and the Apocalypse of Peter, and in addition to these the extant epistle of Barnabas, and the so-called teachings of the apostles. That's the Didache he's talking about. And besides, as I said, the Apocalypse of John, if it seems proper, which some, as I said, reject, but which others class with the accepted books. So he's talking of John at the end there, the Apocalypse of John. It's a Gnostic document. Again, it's most likely, I think, 2nd or early 3rd century, that book. But it does show us, he's just listed out a number of fake books attributed to the Christian history. It's like very much the case that these were Christian documents, and they came around the 2nd century, we can surmise, but they were more Gnostic, or just belonging to different schools. Remember, Gnosticism was not a unified religious church in the 1st or 2nd centuries. There were many Gnostic sects. Literalist Christianity most likely grew out of one form of these sects. But that quote is in Historia Ecclesiastica. It's book 3, chapter 25:4. So the Gospel of the Lord used marcion, and the Didache uses familiar words like bishops and deacons. This is a 2nd century, 3rd century verbiage, however, so 2nd and 3rd century verbiage, having specific parallels with the pseudo-Pauline Titus and Timothy. So those epistles use the same kind of bishops and deacons verbiage. This is these are later innovations and later words attributed to these documents and so on. So it gives us a much better idea of more likely a 2nd century Advent, if you like. It also has absolutely zero content based on gospel accounts relating to earthly Jesus. So it's a small document, the Didache, but it doesn't tell us anything about the earthly Jesus. The first archaeological evidence of the Didache comes late, in around the 4th century, dating the fragments found in the Oxyrhynchus papyrus. So we went through the Oxyrhynchus papyrus found in Egypt, but again, this is the first small fragments of this Didache are found then, 300-400 years later, but the first complete manuscript doesn't surface until the 11th century. Sean J. Wilhite, PhD, Associate Professor of the New Testament at California Baptist University, California, has this to say: the textual history of the Didache is quite complicated, as the Didache is often reflective of a late 1st or early 2nd century social setting, and the manuscript tradition is quite scattered. Some direct manuscript witnesses survive, but the only surviving and generally completed manuscript dates to the mid-11th century. So Codex Hierosylimitanus. Sorry, I went through this and tried to remember the name of this. Codex Hierosylimitanus. Additionally, 2 4th century fragments, Papyrus Oxyrhynchus, contained the Didache fragmentary, 1 5th century Coptic fragment as well. It contains the Didache 10, 3, B, 12, and 2. It won't mean anything to you. And this is found on Shane J. Wilhite's website, www.shanejwilhite.com/blog. So you can find it there if you want to read more about that. Adding to this, the Didache appears to be quoting from the Gospel of Matthew, Acts, Paul's letters, and the apocryphal epistle of Barnabas, again tending the argument that it was likely a later document which borrows freely from these texts. It is sporadic and vague, whilst outwardly appearing to quote from apostles themselves. We may see then how it may well have been employed as a forged document purporting to be pre-Pauline to add to the corpus of texts designed to give validity to the Christian church. It cannot therefore be categorically assumed to be an authentic 1st century document, though it still is early. It might not be forged. It might be a genuine document, but if it's 2nd century and it doesn't really contain anything about Jesus himself, then it's still problematic. Regarding the Didache, I thought I'd just quote something from a couple of guys who wrote the book Christ Before Jesus, Evidence for the 2nd Century Origins of Jesus. Great book. The authors are Britt. Oh, that's not good. Britt, last name, and I've got it. I'm going to get better at this, by the way, guys. I'm just ad-libbing all of these videos for now, and I'm hoping to get much better at this. So apologies. I'm not going to rabbit on. But yes, Christ Before Jesus is the book, Evidence for 2nd Century Origins of Jesus. I'm sorry I couldn't remember the authors. Jengo and Britt last names. Anyway, we get a couple of other references to the text in the late 300s as well. So besides Eusebius, by Athanasius and Rufinus, all of them listed it as non-canonical, while Eusebius places it alongside documents like the Apocalypse of Peter. So we went into that, Apocalypse of Peter and the Shepherd of Mass, while some attempt to claim the church organization is underdeveloped in the Didache, and thus the document is early. The usage of positions such as deacons and bishops in the text clearly indicate that the earliest the document could have been written was the middle of the 2nd century. We find the words bishops used most in Acts and the pastoral letters, some of the latest canonical texts we have. So again, evidence. It's also found in 1 Peter, a fake letter attributed to Peter, written in the style of Paul and also dated to the 2nd century. Many have also pointed out overlapping concepts and vocabulary between the Didache and the Gospel of Matthew, again, which I've been over, which was also written in the middle of the 2nd century. Ultimately, all signs point to the Didache being written in the 2nd century, along with much of the rest of early Christian literature. So, to just recap quickly, Didache, it's the teachings, Lord's teachings through the 12 apostles. Many Christians, and I've heard many Christians say this, believe the Didache to be a document that was kind of around just after the death of Jesus. It is not attested until Eusebius, writing in the 4th century. He himself says it is a forgery. It shouldn't be. It's not canonical, guys. And Athanasius and Rufinus say the same things. Irenaeus believes that it is legitimate, but it looks very much 2nd century, and it's not surprising that Irenaeus would believe it might be. He wasn't a particularly good historian. He was a polemicist and a propagandist for the literal faith, and his works attest to that greatly. 10 minutes in, yeah, that's Didache. So not likely a good piece of evidence for the historical Jesus. It doesn't say anything really about the historical Jesus. It's more a document, a prescription of things that churches should follow. That's it. Peace out. Have a great day, guys. Lovely. Fantastic.